Okay, good. Now everyone gets to acknowledge that I'm recording and be okay with it. All right, so today is the last day of February, guys. So hopefully if you had any goals for February, you completed them by today. You don't have 2 more days like you would in any other month. But anyway, happy end of February, February 28th. This week I brought on Jake, and it was so funny. So I'll say Jake, even though his name says Jacob on the screen. Because I'm pretty sure your Facebook page says Jake. So
yeah, I go by Jake. I just, when I registered for Zoom, I put my legal name in there, and
his professional name.
The government name.
Yeah.
Right. So Jake and I met in one of the Orlando boot camps back in September. And we have been working closely together. We pretty much have a weekly call. Me and my husband were interested in buying some properties down in North Carolina, and Jake is in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was just getting his business started, had just kind of gotten into fortune builders, but was very systems oriented. I'm going to blame it on the military background, because he was like, I'm going to get this all up and running and working. And within just months of being in real estate, he's hired several VAs and has a whole acquisition system in place. And I think it's pretty impressive. Obviously, you guys know me. I know a lot of people in real estate. And so when somebody does something that impresses me, that means they did something good. So anyway, Jake was saying that he would love to come on. I don't know if anybody had caught either, but he was invited to Ignite. So he was also interviewed and a speaker at the Ignite conference in 2021. But anyway, I wanted to give Jake the opportunity to kind of teach you guys what he's implemented so quickly and how he's done it, and really get into some of the nitty gritty with you guys. So hopefully everyone is excited to hear all the details. I give you a round of applause. It's kind of weird when you're introducing someone on a Zoom call. Like, how do you, and round of applause for Jake. He's awesome. Yes, see, I see hands in the air. So Jake, we are totally excited to have you, and I will give you the option to share your screen and take it away.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the warm introduction, Marie. Very happy to be here. I think I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you, either virtually or through a couple of the Fortune Builders events. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared here. As Marie said, I'm relatively new to real estate investing and everything. So aside from Ignite, this is kind of the first time that I'm going to be speaking at this, capacity. So if it's horrible, just, feel free to leave.
No, they can't leave the Zoom. Come on.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Yeah. But Jake, I will ask you if you have a preference. Do you want people to just chime in with questions while you're going through your presentation, or do you want people to hold off? As a speaker, you get to choose.
Sure. I am not super easily derailed, so if you guys want to just chime in, go for it.
All right, I like it.
Okay. All right, so anybody with any type of military background, you're going to know the term death by PowerPoint. I'm trying very hard to make this presentation not so boring. A little bit about myself before we get started. Well, actually, I think that's the first slide. So yeah, we're going to start off with the About Us, which is going to be a little bit about us, me and my wife. Then we're going to take a quick look at kind of how we got started and where we are now. I break down my acquisitions plan, or model, I guess, into 4 parts: the research, the planning, the implementation, and then the review. And then we're going to get into a little bit of the specifics of working with the VA, interviewing the VA, the financial breakdown to see how much a system like this is costing me monthly versus what it's bringing in, and then just a few books and a brief slide for questions, anything that you didn't get to ask or that just comes to your mind towards the end. So this is me and my wife and my baby that never smiles. um, we have been married for 6 years. This is my son James, and we have
I will
another one
say
on the
James
way.
is very well even tempered though. It's not like he's a crazy crybaby either. He's just very what's that word with his facial expression?
He's just like everything.
Stoic.
He's just like super content.
Yes,
Like he's
stoic.
not.
He's very
Yeah,
stoic.
stoic. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, and we have another one on the way.
I was
Like
just
we
gonna
weren't
say,
busy
no
enough.
one can tell, but Curtis has got baby number 2 coming.
Yep. So I work full time as the CEO of Evolve Property Solutions. My wife works part time, and she still maintains her W-2. So that's kind of the division of labor for us as owners. We started the business in June of 2021, and so we started the business in June. We joined Fortune Builders May 23rd. We had my son May 25th.
Oh,
Yeah, so it was a crazy time because we had just, anybody that's paid that tab knows what that commitment, does to you. And then we we had our second coaching call, or no, excuse me, our first coaching call scheduled on the 25th. We had our son on the 25th. So I think it was like maybe like 10:30 was when the coaching call was scheduled for. My wife's actually in labor. She's like 3 centimeters dilated. And I'm getting a call from San Diego, California. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the coach. And like, I grew up with my parents watching like all those sitcoms, like Everybody Loves Raymond and King of Queens, where like the wife always is like super aggressive and the husband's like, oh God, I messed up. And so I'm like, what do I do? Do I answer this? Like she's in labor. So I looked at my wife and I'm like, it's the coach. What do I do? And she's like, you fucking answer it. We just spent $40,000. Answer the phone. So we took our first coaching call, and then from there we dove right in. Let's see. As Marie said, and I kind of mentioned, I served as a sergeant in the 173rd and the 82nd Airborne, and that definitely gave me just a structure, and I was used to working with systems and discipline that I am
can I just
reluctant.
mention too that you lived in Italy for what? How many years?
About 3.5 years with
So
the
jealous.
173rd. Yeah, we brought back a bunch of wine. We went all over the world, all on the Army's dime. It was pretty cool.
So jealous.
Right.
I went to Jake's house and he was like, oh, would you like a glass of wine for dinner? And I was like, I would love a glass of wine. And he's like, well, what kind would you like? And he opens up this little closet and there is a sheet on the wall listed all the different bottles that's in his closet. I'm like, what kind of wine connoisseur are you? And he's like, well, the military shipped it for us, so we had to inventory it all. All right, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, so also we had no real estate experience before we did anything with Fortune Builders. I did work some trade jobs. I was a welder in the military. I did some roofing when I was younger, and mostly just worked as a laborer. So I kind of experienced, the construction of a home, but at a very minimal kind of entry level perspective. So taking a quick look, this is kind of from day one, joining Fortune Builders to today. We made that 40,000 commitment into real estate with the education and the services. 2 days later, we had our first child, and it definitely did complicate things. We spent the first 3 months studying, setting up the foundations of our business, and then I started marketing. And like it says there, I did suck. It was horrible. I had no deals, super discouraged. Not only were we burning through our savings, I would say hemorrhaging was probably the best way to put it.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I mean, I think on my first call, the first time I got on with a seller, well, I would not call them a seller. The first time I got on with a lead, um, I didn't know what I was doing. I had the script in front of me that Fortune Builders gives you. I had like practiced with my coach and everything, and then I said something to the effect of like, hello, ma'am. Would you like to get rid of your home? And, just so nerved up and everything. And then obviously it gets easier, but in this time period, I couldn't put it together. I couldn't be a new dad. I couldn't be a student. I couldn't be an acquisitions manager and everything all at once. I was having a hard time. So I went to the event in Orlando and it changed my business almost overnight. Not only was it meeting Marie and other investors there, but specifically one moment that I'll say probably changed my life and business. And this is very sincere. I mean this. During one of the breaks, I went up to Than Merrill, and there wasn't anybody really around him because everybody was like going to the bathroom or whatever. It just happened to align for me in this moment. So I got a chance to go up there and really explain my whole situation, where I was, what I was doing, how we were financially. And he just looked at me and said, get an assistant. So, my mind starts spinning. I'm like, okay, well, in person, a virtual assistant, what are the pros? What are the cons? How should I do it? He's like, get an assistant. It doesn't matter. So that, I walked away and I'm just racking my brain on this. Um, and so, everything happens and kind of wraps up at the boot camp. I connected with Marie and we got on that weekly call she was talking about, and then we started doing our research and everything. And mind you, the whole time we're still super discouraged. We haven't gotten any deals. We're still bleeding from our pockets. And then we hired a VA after kind of comparing the cost analysis of somebody local, like somebody, a college student or somebody that would be able to fill the position here versus the virtual assistant. We decided to go with the virtual assistant, and I'm so thankful that we did. We trained her and got our first deal under contract in a week. During the week we were training her. And we're currently closing on our 5th wholesale tomorrow with Marie. So it's come together pretty quickly. I think all of that started kind of late November, and then here we are coming into March here. Okay, so in the beginning, I said that I kind of break my acquisitions down.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I'm sorry, because with Zoom, it's hard to see who that last comment came from. So who was that?
Brooke and Bill.
Oh, thank you.
We had dinner with you in Orlando.
Yeah. No, I remember. Like I said, it was just hard to pinpoint because I have 2 screens, so I couldn't see who said that. Yeah. Okay, so first step is obviously research, right? But I think that there's a couple of things that I was able to do that maybe you've heard before or maybe you haven't heard before, but they were very effective. And the biggest kind of ahas came from my competition. So that old adage, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. I had done a bunch of the basic stuff. I had looked at Zillow, Realtor.com, any of those like listing sites that'll tell you, oh, the median home price for your area is 162,000 for a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house that anybody can go see. That is great to be able to spit out in a social gathering, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't, like, it gives you a ballpark of reference, but it doesn't really like help you a significant amount with your business. But what spending some time with my competition did was showed me, okay, this is where their marketing efforts are. This is where they are spending more money. This is what they're not doing. This is the part of town that, maybe why is he not marketing over there? So just, and I say competition, but we're all friends. We get together and kind of talk shop, if you will. But that gave me so much insight into a market that I didn't really know, because like Marie said, I was in Italy for 3.5 years. We moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina, only a little over a year ago. So I'm doing this in an area that I don't really understand geographically. And that was a huge obstacle. Now, and that kind of ties into the last item here, that wall maps work. If you have been told through any type of training system that to get a wall map and put it up so you can see your market, and you haven't done that, there's a reason why you've been told that. It works incredibly well. At least it did for us. I don't want this to be like preachy and be like, you need to do this, but it just kind of, and I'm looking at it right now, it makes it so easy to visualize like niches of your market. And when you get a hot lead and they say, hey, this is in the Jack Britt School District, you can just poke, like you can see it right there, and you know, because you should have your price points identified. Okay, wow, that's probably going to sell for about, you know, in my market, like 200,000, 300,000. I know it's really different for
So
you guys
Jake,
out in,
I've been there and I've seen your wall map. Can you just give everyone a breakdown of what information you put on that and how you broke it up?
Sure. So it's kind of it's ever changing, but the stuff that I have on there right now, excuse me. So I like to color code it. I use color coded markers on the map to identify. You know, the red is kind of like the bad areas. The green is probably like the higher price point areas. Blue is kind of like in the middle. And then I just know based on the price points that we have here, the green areas, we don't, I think there's like 2 houses in Fayetteville that are like over 300,000. So I know that's kind of like the high end. The low areas, we sold a house to Marie for $10,000. So, you know, there's low lows and there's not so high
Correction
highs.
there. You had it under contract for $10,000. I paid $15,000 on an assignment fee.
That's true. We did make money off of it. But yeah, so that's really as far as I like to go, I think, because I tried very early on getting super detailed with it, and then there was just like so much stuff all over my map that it was like I couldn't read it, I couldn't see it from across the room, so it wasn't really that effective anyway. I find that 3 colors identifying niche neighborhoods within a greater market area is really effective for me. And then this one here, what's the sizzle feature of your market? There's got to be something about your market that if you're going to wholesale, you need to know what's going to attract people here. Like I know my big sizzle feature is that I'm right next to a military base. There's just different protections that investors have when you're renting to a military family. They have to pay not only because they need a place to live, but they also have to pay because, you know, they can't be in trouble with their chain of command. They could lose their, security clearance. There's just kind of added benefits. Not to mention, there's always going to be people coming in and out. So, you know, really, you should be able to kind of identify that sizzle feature or multiple sizzle features depending on what's going on in your area. Excuse me. But I think the biggest one for sure was the competition and getting over there and seeing what other people were doing. Okay, so getting into the plan, cheap data is great, but quality data is better. And what I'm getting at there is that we pull all of our leads, they come from a list. We pull our lists through RealFlow. I know that there's some controversy within the investment community about whether RealFlow is, you know, the software you should be using. There are a wide variety of other softwares you can use to generate lead lists, but we've just been using it since the beginning, and we've got our system kind of built around it, and we've been able to generate quality leads from it. So I am of the mindset that until something substantially better comes along that's worth upsetting my system, I'm going to continue to use RealFlow. I'm not going to say it's the best, I'm not saying it's the worst, it just works for us. So you have to kind of do your own evaluation there, but I'll give you a couple tips that I use when I'm pulling my lead lists. I love tax delinquent lead lists. That's where I've probably gotten 3 out of the 5 deals that we've done so far. Absentee owner, I think everybody that pulls lead lists is going to pull an absentee owner lead list. So there's a lot more competition there. Tax delinquent lists are, I don't want to say that less people will pull them or less people know about them. They seem to be working better for me in my market. Also potentially inherited. That's one that I don't know that everybody can run that on different platforms, but potentially inherited, high equity are great lists as well. And you can mix and match. You can have lists that are kind of a mix of everything or get very specific with it. but I would advise you to be very careful if you're going to get very specific with it. I think I watched a presentation from Carlos Reyes. Actually, it was Marie. You gave everybody in the group the link to it. And
Yeah.
on that presentation, it was super helpful because I was getting super restricted. I'm like, I'm going to pull a list that nobody's ever had. I'm going to have the best list. It'll be all mine and I'll get every house. Horrible idea, right? Because what you're banking on is that there's no human error. What happens is that when these properties are recorded, at least in my county, when the properties are recorded here in Cumberland County, there's quite a few errors. So if you're restricting your list down to, I only want 3-bed, 2-bath houses, and I only want houses that are made before a certain year, certain size, a certain amount of equity left, you're relying on other people to have done their job completely perfectly every time. Otherwise, you're missing all those potential diamonds in the rough, because anybody that's ever done this knows that you can pull a list of 2,000, but it's those 1 or 2 sellers that you need to get a hold of, and you could just be throwing those right out of the window in your original filters. So don't get too restrictive and play around with it a little bit until you find what works for you in your market. Now, after you pull the list, you have to get it ready to be processed. So if you're pulling the list, depending on who you're using to, and how did you get my number? That's a common question that we get all the time. That's skip tracing. So I don't know kind of who I'm speaking to in terms of experience here. Has anybody in the chat never skip traced? It is kind of like they don't really know exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody? Or do pretty much everybody know what skip tracing is?
Yeah, we've skip traced too, and it's been a very, depending on what you use, what kind of information you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've used a couple, but that's good. I'm glad that most people have gone through this. So we're using Best Skip Tracer. We were using Launch Control, which I'll get to in a minute. But we started using Best Skip Tracer. So one of the things that we had to overcome was when you're pulling these lists, there's going to be duplicates in the list that you pull, but there's also going to be duplicates from previous lists that you've pulled. So you don't want to keep paying for this data over and over again. I mean, skip tracing is one of the most expensive aspects of my business. So we had a Excel file created with a macro in it that goes and it takes all of the information from the list that we pull, and it scrubs it, and it removes all the duplicates before we skip trace it. If you don't have something like that in place, then you need to make sure that whoever you're skip tracing through is going to filter out the duplicates for you. Otherwise, you're throwing money away. And like I said, this being one of the more expensive aspects of the business, you could be throwing a lot of money away. So that's definitely something to look into if you think you're having that problem. And feel free to reach out to me at the end, and I can kind of tell you how we set ours up if you'd like. And then just to wrap up, how did you get my number? The reason we're using Best Skip Tracer is because Marie told me to. No,
That's great.
No, it's very cheap compared to a lot of skip tracing companies. We pay, so there's 3 packages you can go through with them, and I'm not like affiliate marketing to you guys. I'm just explaining why we use them. There's 3 packages you can go through. We pay for like the VIP package. It's $97 a month, and at that rate, you can skip trace for 8 cents a lead, which is very, very low. We were paying 15 cents a lead. I've seen as high as 20 cents a lead. So that cut our skip tracing almost in half, which was huge in terms of what we could do as far as marketing. So definitely something to check out. They also provide emails, which is really cool because that opens up kind of a whole nother lead generation funnel that you could use to your advantage. Any questions before we move on?
I think on the emails, are you saying that they actually will send out the information that you're asking from the seller?
So Brooke, the skip tracer, they will only provide you with the best known or the last associated email
Oh,
with the owner of the property.
okay.
Yeah, they're not sending out emails for you, Brooke, but you're then able to import those emails into any other CRM that you have that you can send messages.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah, most skip tracers don't offer an email as part of their skip tracing.
And they also have like a polar pick option. This is a Best Skip Tracer exclusive. They have a what's called a polar pick, which is like their recommended best contact for that individual. I will say that we've only just started using them. So far, we're happy with them. But do your own due diligence before you decide to commit to a company for really anything. Okay, so the next step is implementation. This is exactly what we're doing. This is all we're doing for marketing, and we've been able to generate 5 wholesale deals from just this. So we do all of our text blasting through Launch Control. I will support this company for as long as they're in business. They're one of my favorite companies. They do provide skip tracing, which is what we were doing prior to using Best Skip Tracer. But essentially, you have at this point gone through the whole process, planned, you got all your leads, you have identified the right number that you need to get a hold of the property owner, hopefully, not all the time. And then you upload that list into Launch Control. And Launch Control takes it. They do a second round of scrubbing to make sure that you're not going to have landlines there, that you're not going to have duplicates based on people that you've messaged in their system, in case some things have gotten crossed around with your other duplicate filters. And then they have you set up 5 different templates. The reason why you set up 5 different templates, and this is something that would be good to know if you're texting at any capacity, is that the large cell phone providers, Verizon, Sprint, US Cellular, I don't know all of them, but they have pretty good spam filters, and they're only getting better. So what we're doing is we're sending out up to 150 text messages at a time. We have to click it 150 times, but the message is all auto-generated based on the skip tracing data. So what I mean by it's auto-generated is it'll take the information for that seller. It'll take their first name. It'll take the property address of the property they own, and then it'll plug in a brief message, something like, "Hey, Mrs. Smith, we're buying properties on Main Street, exit, wherever. Are you interested in a cash offer on your property?" And then it just does that automatically for every one of those sellers. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I can get a hold of 150 people. And text messaging right now it's got the highest response rates. It's got the highest open rates. It's the quickest way to get visibility on your marketing. I'm a huge fan of it. We wouldn't have gotten any of our deals without it. I don't want to go super technical unless somebody does want to get super technical with Launch Control. We can definitely kind of look into that at the end with the questions, or I can hang around a little bit after the call. But Launch Control is a great text messaging platform that has a lot to offer. And they also do their own KPI tracking. So after we text message them initially, then we cold call them. We use the same list that we used before, except now we can use those landlines. So we're really squeezing that list for everything it's worth, because we're going to text message the mobile numbers and we're going to call the landlines. We call the mobile numbers as well because we always have a minimum 3 touch points on every lead. The cold calling happens through Call Tools. Call Tools is a call center software that also works if you only have 1 or 2 employees as well. And what it does is it allows your cold caller, whether that's yourself or your VA in my situation, to call up to 10 numbers at a time. And their software will filter out the quickest answering line in that queue. So if it calls 10 numbers and one of them happens to answer in 3 seconds versus the rest of them that didn't answer, it connects you to the one that answered in 3 seconds and recycles all of them back to the back of the line. So it's an amazingly efficient way to call hundreds of people a day. It's
Jake,
not,
out of curiosity, is launch control and call tools integrated at all, or do you have to upload the list into both systems?
we upload the list into both systems. I don't know if there is an integration, Marie. If there was, it would be through Zapier. Zapier is a service provider that integrates individual softwares throughout the internet and brings them together. I don't know that there would be one.
Okay. Yeah.
Great
just
question,
curious.
though.
Thanks.
So Jacob, how many phone lines are you buying through call
So
tools? How many phone lines?
we operate off of seven numbers that are ported through call tools.
Mhm.
I only have one virtual assistant calling at a time, though. And we aim to call around 400 to 500 people a day. It really depends on kind of the workload and how many other conversations they get into on a day.
So have you used call tools already, or are you starting to use call tools?
We've used call tools since we took on our VA. Yeah, very happy with that software.
Okay, yeah, because I used call tools as well. But
Oh, fantastic.
from one day to the next, I would get the phone numbers blocked for robocall.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, how is this? And I know they were talking about, if you're running, 10 calls at a time, then you need to have like many more lines than 10 different phone numbers
Yeah.
that you're using. And yeah, it was like, I used them for a little over probably about 3 months. And in that period of time, I had to keep switching phone numbers because every time I had a phone number, it would come up robocall. And sometimes I didn't even get to use the numbers yet, and they already came up as a robocall. I'm like,
Wow.
okay, how is that?
So I don't know, Dolores, if that's maybe regional, but I have not had that trouble with call tools here in North Carolina. We've changed our numbers twice, and that's just because they were, it was preventative.
Oh.
We hadn't run into that, so I'd have to do a little bit more research to give you an answer on that. I don't know right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I'm
I
in
would-
Southern California, so I don't know, but and then not only that, I use different area codes. So I didn't have all the same area code, but
Oh,
it's
yes.
all different area code for the area that we are in.
Mhm.
And still the numbers came up under robocall. And it was like, wow, that was very frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I'm sorry you had that trouble with them. There's quite a few other calling platforms. I know a lot of people that use batch dialer. So, maybe you could look in one of those and hopefully you'd have some better luck with that.
You brought up a good point, Jacob, about that being a regional issue, though. So Dolores, obviously in California where you are, your market is got a whole lot more investors going after properties than Jake probably has competition in little old Fayetteville. So I wonder
Yeah.
if there are even better spamming tools that Verizon uses in one area versus another or something, just because of the markets. So that is something I would be curious to know why it's different.
Yeah, because they did say it's the service providers in the area that do the blocking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
so
interesting.
Jake, you've been using them since November?
Yep, right around the beginning of November.
Okay.
And we've only changed numbers twice. So luckily the filters here are not that great, which is horrible for the people that live here, but great for me. So, okay, so then after they've gone through call tools, like I said, we always make sure we have 3 touch points. We're on the second touch point. Now everything gets recycled back into our follow-up tracker. That's why I have a Microsoft Excel picture here, because there's no great picture of my follow-up tracker. We created our own tracker. I'm kind of like an Excel nerd. I did a lot of Excel files over the years, and I just luckily, I guess, because it made it very easy to automate our follow-up system. So my VA plugs in all of the information for the people that we don't follow up with everybody. We follow up with so I guess I lied when I said 3 touch points. We follow up with, at a minimum, the drip campaign and up. What I mean by that is, if somebody says no, we put them on a drip campaign. If somebody says, I try to respect the do not contact me again, I won't contact them again. If they say some like very threatening stuff, or, like you can just tell, okay, this is not going to work. I don't want to, deal with you anyway. We don't follow up with those people. But anything from no up, we cycle them through our follow-up tracker, and my virtual assistant reaches back out to them again over a period of 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months. Because you never know what's going to happen with these people. Things are, they're going to change for them all the time. Anybody that's been in this for a while knows that the follow-ups are amazing. I mean, we've barely been operating long enough to have our long-term follow-ups pay off, but we have had it happen, I think, at the 3-month point so far. So after our follow-ups, assuming things have gone well for the month, we've done our text blasts, we've done our cold calls, we've done our follow-ups. Now it's time to get to work on some negotiations. I think one of the best books that I've read on negotiations is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Chris Voss was the head FBI terrorist negotiator for I can't remember how long, but the tactics and what he teaches in that book are remarkable. You can really apply it to almost any conversation that you have. There's so many nuggets. I can't even, like, mirroring. A lot of his focus is around mirroring, around finding the pain points in the negotiation, having a hard anchor, meaning if you know that somebody's going to come in with an offer of, or they're going to ask for 100,000 for their house and you need it for 70,000, you're coming in with 50,000 and negotiating up to 70,000 and making them think that they're pulling you to where they want to be, when really you're just driving them right to where you want to be. But I cannot do that book enough justice in this call. So if you're interested in improving your negotiation skills, if you haven't read this book, it's an absolute must. And then closing, boy, so many different strategies on closing. I've tried some that have worked, and then I've tried a lot that haven't worked. The way I like to kind of wrap things up when I'm closing a deal with a seller is I present them with a repair estimator. It's a very conservative repair estimator that represents if I was just fixing this thing up to the nines, everything, every little thing. I put it on there, put it on the repair estimator, and I present them with what we would do to the property if we were going to rehab it. And then I show them the comps for properties that are in, this is key, I show them comps for properties that are in the condition that their home is in. Don't present them with the comps of the ARVs of the nicest house in the neighborhood. The way I think about it is, if they're going to sell their house, they should be doing their homework to find out what their house is worth. So we present them with those 2 documents, and then I ask them how they feel about it. How do I feel about what? Well, how do you feel about those comparables? And then how do you feel about knowing that we're going to need to do X amount of dollars worth of work to your house to bring it up to market value now? And that's been an incredibly effective strategy for us to get houses at serious discounts. The house that me and Marie were just joking about, that we got under contract for 10,000, she originally wanted 25,000. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, it's 25,000, got it for 10,000. But if you look at that in a percentage, I mean, that's over 50% right there. We got our next house under contract. She wanted it for 75,000, and we got it for, how much did you buy Carmenton? It was like 35.
35.
Yeah. So another one, down, 50% right there almost again. The next two they were pretty savvy investors, so it didn't work so good on them. But don't be afraid to mix it up a little bit. Figure out what type of a person you're dealing with and tailor the closing strategy to that person. That would be my best advice.
So what was your line? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and that's something from Never Split the Difference again. How do you feel about that? And then how am I supposed to do that if they come back with something really high? Well, I'm sorry, but I don't understand how am I supposed to do that? And that really gets people thinking, or it's supposed to anyway.
That was my favorite part of the book, Never Split the Difference, is literally he keeps saying, how do you expect me to do that? Or how am I going to do that? And it doesn't matter, like his thing was with terrorists. He's like, you want me to come up with $100,000 and get it to you by noon? I can't, how am I supposed to do that? Not, I can't do that.
Right.
No, I'm never going to do that. How am I supposed to do that? And the person on the other end on almost all of his negotiations are like, well, then give me $50,000. And you're like, okay, so you want me to come up with $50,000? That's the mirroring. How am I supposed to do that? And then ultimately they'll be like, well, I need it by 6 p.m. tomorrow. Okay, how am I going to get it by 6 p.m. tomorrow? I have to sell my car. I have to sell, pull equity from my house. It's going to take time to do that. How am I going to do it by 6 p.m. tomorrow? And then they'll like go down all the way down. And he's gotten negotiations from $250,000 down to like $5,000 to release a kidnapping person or to like whatever it is. And it like some of the stuff he explains is like insane. And his main question, how am I going to do that?
Yep.
So that's a big question with negotiating and sales.
So I think she's read the book.
She's in the middle of reading it. That's cheating. It's very fresh in her mind.
I am 3/4 of the way done. Actually, I'm 78% done with it.
Oh,
But yes,
nice.
it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, no, it really is. If anybody on the call hasn't read it, I think if you're going to be negotiating, especially with real estate, I wish everybody would read it. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? No? Okay. All right, so now we're getting into review. And this is, do I have anybody on the call that uses Riva Global? No?
I don't think so. I know a bunch of us have obviously heard of Riva, but I don't think anyone on the call is using them.
Okay. Well, so I know a lot of people are kind of skeptical of things that are maybe not skeptical, I don't know, but we all get kind of bombarded with extras and add-ons and associated things with different educational platforms that you purchase or buy into, and I was too. But when we did our research, when we were looking into in-person versus virtual assistants, Riva Global was right up there with pretty much any of the other VA companies. And so we ended up going with them. But the reason why I say that is because this entire productivity report is presented to me every month. I don't have to go in there and just crunch numbers and just go through all my files and set up all these trackers and do all this extra stuff. This is just once a month, this gets presented to me, and then I meet with my team and we go over everything and we review how we can tweak things based on the month. So I'll just kind of give you a little breakdown of this, and you really should be tracking all of your marketing really, because you can't, and I'm a firm believer of this, you can't improve what you can't measure. I think probably most of you heard that too if you've taken any of the Fortune Builders courses, but this is an interesting month, so I'm really glad I was able to show this one, right? So looking at my text message campaign up here, I have 866 new text messages sent, and I received 198 responses from that. And then I have my follow-up campaign, which is dramatically higher, 5,678. So we had to pay, what was the expense? I can't remember what the expense was, but we ended up paying a substantial expense this month that I really should be able to remember that, but I don't do the accounting in my business. My wife does. anyway, it ate into our marketing budget. So we were like, all right, well, we need to kind of compress this down a little bit. We need to tighten the belt, and we focused on just all of, like, I think it was the first week. If you look at this forwarded leads chart down here, the first week represented in blue, we had 8 hot leads, or 8 leads, excuse me. And then the rest of the month was when we started tightening our belt and using our follow-ups. And you can see this is such good information here, right? So with 866, with new fresh leads, we're generating 8 a week. And then once we had to kind of slow things down and only use our stale leads or our follow-up leads, I mean, it literally cut our lead generation in half here. And then this is representative of like a half a week. So I would say it would still come out to about half. But this tells me 2 things. One, that I need to keep fresh leads pumped into my system to maximize my marketing efforts. But it also tells me that there are leads hanging out in my follow-ups, which is really reassuring in knowing that I think right now we have something like over 100,000 sellers that we've generated a list on. And I can just keep going back to that and keep wringing it out over time. And there's gonna trickle down through the system, and there's gonna be leads in there too. So don't throw away your follow-ups. Don't discredit an old list. This is something else from Carlos Reyes, but your old list is somebody else's brand new list. And this shows it, right? And I wouldn't be able to see it so clearly if I wasn't tracking my KPIs so well. So in a bad month with my system right now, we're generating 7 hot leads, 10 warm leads, and 86 nurture leads. I think that's pretty incredible. Obviously, our response rates dropped. Well, we didn't send a whole lot of new campaign messages, but our deliverability rate, this is another great touch point for kind of advocating for text message marketing. I don't know of any other marketing campaign that has a 92% deliverability rate. I mean, maybe billboards, because you can't not see something, but that's about it. So just make sure that you have some way of tracking what you're doing so you can just continuously improve it. Any questions about KPIs, maybe how you can make some improvements to anything, or just anything really in general?
No, I am curious though, because you said this is a report that you're getting from Riva.
Yeah.
So those other systems that you're using, obviously your VA from Riva is using all those systems for launch control, call tools, what were you using?
Call tools, yeah.
Call rail's another one. I'm not crazy.
It is.
So is like the data from those programs being shown here?
Yes. So this is like the pretty polished, PDF that they send out at the end of the month. Excuse me. But there are 4 other reports that my VA has to complete, all like their requirements from Riva Global, and then they all get consolidated. I get a beginning of the day report, and I get an end of the day report. I get a weekly report, and then I get a monthly report, and that is data from her cold calling, her follow-ups, and her text messages.
Gotcha.
It's very all-inclusive. Saves me a bunch of work, and I'm all about automation.
So are you using your VA full-time or part-time?
Full-time, absolutely. We started part-time, and as soon as we made money and I saw what was happening, I dumped all of our profits of our first deal into our business, and we took her on full-time, even before we could afford it. We couldn't even afford our VA when we started working with our VA, but I knew that Stan Merrill had told me you need to get an assistant, and it's paid tenfold so far. So now,
Hi, Jacob. Valerie here. Great presentation so far. Could you go back to the previous screen for just 1 second? I just want to take a screenshot of that great information there. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
Hey,
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so now that's the four kind of steps to my acquisition system. I'm not going to get into our dispositions and exit strategies because I think most of the people on this call are probably more experienced than all of that than me. I'm just kind of teaching my acquisition side of things right now. So, and now we're getting into what my virtual assistant does within that system and how we kind of got that ball rolling. So the biggest thing I want to stress or emphasize here, and this is why I put it first, is that it's an investment of time, not just money. I know so many people that have gotten involved with a virtual assistant because I've said or just been talking about my success with them that have gotten absolutely nothing from them, that would say that they wasted thousands of dollars on them, and you know they're kind of jaded on virtual assistants going forward. You can't just expect to buy an employee that knows your systems. I mean, everybody's system is a little different. Doesn't matter what program you went through to learn how to do it. Even if we all went through the same, course, I'm sure it's just there's little nuances that you're going to have that somebody else isn't going to use, and so you need to really take a look at that. What we did was we created an onboarding packet. That onboarding packet has a kind of a welcoming document that my wife, as if we wrote a letter to our new employee, explaining who we are, what we're hoping to achieve, our goals, our business vision. It also included our compensation plan. We knew very early that we wanted, even though this virtual employee was not going to physically be with us, we knew that we wanted somebody to work with us for a long time. So we thought that kind of developing a long-term compensation plan was a great way to have that message come across to them. We offer our acquisition specialists, I think it's 1% of every deal that we close on through the first year. And then each year after that, capping at 5%, they get a 0.5% increase on that bonus for every deal that we close on. There's no cap on the amount they can make or how many deals a year. It just caps at 5% once they've reached however long they've been with us. And that really went over well with our VA. I mean, obviously, who wouldn't want to know that they're going to get paid more in years to come? And there's also like an annual raise, kind of similar to how they do it in the military. And it was really fun to be able to present that to her too, because I saw, she just went from like, this was just going to be another virtual employer to like, she looked excited when we were going through the documents, and that was cool to see. We also include an organizational chart, and Michael Gerber, if anybody, I'm sure most people here have read the E-Myth, fantastic book. That organizational chart is something that I reference all the time. It is my map, my guide to where I'm going, my next hire, how my business is going to be laid out. And I let them know that because I don't want to just hire them in one spot and then keep them there for 20 years. If they're good, I want to promote them up in my system and they can see what's going to happen and where they could potentially end up. We're actually moving one of our acquisition specialists up to an acquisitions manager role now, and it's very easy to do that when you have an organizational chart in place. And then, being military, it also included standard operating procedures. You can't not have them. I have SOPs for a lot of it, almost everything. It just makes it very easy to bring somebody into your company and have them completely understand the expectation. I think that is paramount. I mean, how can they be successful if they don't know what you expect from them?
So Jake, can you give an example? Because obviously when you started with your VA, I can't imagine that you knew what you were doing that well.
No.
To be
No,
able to train them, right? Or to have
Yeah.
all these. So can you
So-
give us some examples of like what's one of your SOPs right now?
So they do definitely evolve. I'll just use
Or
our,
I guess
our
a better question is, what is this packet that you have now? Because I know you're hiring a second virtual assistant right now, right? Or you've hired a second and you're training them?
we're interviewing our second
Okay.
one right now. Yeah.
So did your welcome packet change from your first VA to your second VA?
Dramatically. So our SOPs are definitely living documents. I think in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know, right? But for instance, I have outlined what I expect for them in terms of a great example would be the 3 touch points that I spoke about. That was something that was in the original SOP. That was something that I was doing when I was reaching out to people and horribly marketing on my own. And I knew that I wanted my virtual assistant to keep going with that. So I had all of the systems that I was using labeled. I had all of the virtual access that they were going to need. So I had their passwords and their usernames already in the system. I didn't go as far as to like have quotas for what I expected them to do every day, because there's a lot of variance when you're, building rapport with people and, talking to a seller for 20 minutes versus, that 30-second phone call where they tell you to F off. But I mean, really, you can go as detailed as you want. I would say that being vague is not really too helpful. You want to have that shared understanding and be able to kind of manage their expectations of what you want them to do. But to kind of wrap the SOP thing up, it's a living document, right? So every week, no matter what, I'm kind of a squirrel. I'll stay up super late at night and I'm thinking about like 30 different things about how I can make my business better, how I can save money. Well, we should be doing this. And then I have a brain dump file that I keep in my Google Drive, and I'll just drop stuff on my virtual assistant all the time. I feel so bad about it, but we laugh about it. But every week she has to update the SOP with new things that we're doing in our system or new trainings that we have. And the reason why you want to do this, or the reason why I recommend you do this, is that if for whatever reason this virtual employee can no longer work with you, or you decide to fire them, or anything, you don't want to start from scratch. And if you have this living document that outlines everything that's expected of them based on what they're doing every day, you can so easily just plug and play into a new one once you find somebody else that you want to bring into your organization. So that's huge. I mean, that's probably, not even with a virtual assistant, just really anybody in your organization. We do have a daily schedule that we use. I break things down in 15-minute increments, which sounds a little micromanagey, but in the schedule, it states very clearly it's a guide. It's I encourage my virtual assistants to build rapport and take all the time that they need when they're reaching out to sellers, and I don't expect that every task will get done. It's just, I think when you have a virtual employee, it's you can't just like poke your head in the cubicle or just knock on the office door and, hey, how's it going? Just check in. So having structure to what you expect their day to be makes it easier for you to go to that appointment and go look at that house and not have to give your virtual assistant so much instruction on, hey, please reach out to all the follow-ups. And it automates their day and gives them a little structure. We do a 4-week training schedule. So the training schedule is addressed in our weekly meetings. Every Wednesday, we have a weekly meeting where everybody in the company comes together. My wife, virtual assistant, myself, our new virtual assistant will come in, and we go over pretty much everything that's going on within our business. But what we do with training is the first week of the month, we identify what our VA needs or wants to train on. It can be things that we've already done, things that she just doesn't feel confident in. We include her in all of that. I want to know what you don't feel confident in, and I want to know what she doesn't understand. Maybe there'll be things that we have her need to know, but we identify it in the first week. We plan it in the second week, so everybody has full shared understanding of what's going to happen. We conduct the training in the third week, and then on the fourth week we review it. So it just drives it home. That's how they do it in the military. It works. I don't know. It's not broke, don't fix it, right? And then we gradually build confidence through adding tasks. It kind of goes back to the training, but it also goes back to building our employees up to promote them into more managerial positions and take less responsibility or more responsibility off my shoulders. I kind of touched on the meeting, so I'm not going to go into that again, but also take your business seriously. I wasn't taking my business serious for a long time. And if you're not taking your business seriously, certainly your employees are not going to take your business seriously. So just a little mindset thing there. Take what you're doing seriously, and you're working on building your own business. It's not easy, and if you don't take it serious, nobody else will.
I have a quick question. Is your VA, are they like self-employed, or they're like employed by you, like they're working for your business?
Who's that, Elda?
Yeah.
So they work for Reba Global, and we pay Reba Global, and then Reba Global pays the virtual assistant.
They are not a W-2 employee, if that's what you're
Right.
asking, Elda.
Yes, that's what I meant.
They
Okay.
are not.
Okay, yeah. So we pay for Reba Global service. We just happen to pay them $10.60 an hour for their service plus bonuses. So it's a tax write-off. It's not a W-2. It works out pretty well, but I've never had a W-2 employee, so I don't really know how to compare it.
I see. Okay. That's a great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. All right, so this is a video I recorded. And how are we doing on time, Marie? Because I'm not like a expert presenter. So
It's 7:25. So how much more do you have?
a few slides. This is pretty
Okay.
interesting, though. I do want to show this one, and then we can wrap up early.
Yeah, I'd say if we can keep it to another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is an interview that I did today with my VA, so you can kind of see what to expect.
Hold on. I can't hear it on my end.
I don't hear sound.
Jake, just so you know, on the Zoom meeting where there's somewhere, I think, for sound.
I
that
just hit
you
it.
can-
It should. Let me
Okay.
try it now. With this, can everybody hear it? Hey, Rihanna, thanks for taking a minute to talk to me today. I wanted to kind of go over a couple questions that I have regarding when you first started working with us, and maybe some specific things about working with VAs and virtual employees, virtual employers and stuff. So just probably 10 minutes or so, and if you're okay, we'll jump right into the questions.
Okay.
All right. So from the perspective of a virtual employee, what are some of the things that you appreciate when you start working with a new client?
Right. So when I started working with you in the company, you actually sent me the welcome packet before I even started working with you via email, and it was actually great because I was able to see what was expected from me, checking all the documents that you had. And also, I appreciate that you were very hands-on, especially on the trainings that you provided, onboarding. And I was able to get the training that I needed so that I would know how to perform my best.
Okay, awesome. Good. I'm glad that helped. We put me and Chris have put some time into it because we wanted you to feel like, even though you're a virtual employee, you're still just as much of an employee as, you would be if you were here with us. So I'm glad that that had, that effect. And I think we've talked about this, a couple of times before, but like I said, I'm going to be at an event later tonight where some people may not have had virtual employees before. So it's just really good feedback. So, okay. And then the next question we have is, how can employers prepare for working with a VA? And I know we just kind of touched on that, but maybe, I guess, let me hear your thoughts, and then I'll see if we need to kind of dig in deeper.
Yeah. So employers can get ready by having a welcome packet as well, just like you, because it's really, really helpful. Also determining the task that is expected from the virtual assistant. Just like on the document, I had there everything that I needed. So there's less questions, and there's just really more clarifications on what just need to be done, and get all of the credentials, the accounts or passwords that is going to be needed for the tools. Yeah.
I think we actually had some trouble with that the first day that we were doing that. I forgot about that until now. But yeah, that's definitely a must, having all the passwords and everything kind of predetermined. Okay, so maybe aside from just tasks and specifics of passwords and software and stuff, what about more like the employee-employer relationship with the virtual side of things? Like how could people kind of prepare for that?
Yeah. It's actually more about communication. Because being virtual, it's hard to just like speak. Just like if you were in like an office-based work, it's going to be for virtual, it's going to be challenging. But just like what we do here in the company, we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp. So whenever there are questions that are needed to be raised, or we have hot leads that are coming in, appointments that we need to attend to, we can get on a meeting so that we can talk about it. And if you're ever away from the desk, you said that we can use WhatsApp so that I can get a hold of you.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's been huge. Just being able to kind of like set up a Zoom call really quickly and check in with you, even if it's just like 5 minutes here or there. Even on my end, that's really helpful. So I'm glad that's a two-way street. Okay, so I know we just have a couple more minutes here. What is the biggest obstacle that you face as a virtual employee, and how can virtual employers help you overcome that obstacle?
Okay. So the first thing that I had was communication, but we already tackled that with having Zoom and WhatsApp and that. And the second that I've come so far working virtual is only the internet, because it can
Oh, yeah.
happen sometimes. Yeah, because I've had instances that I was not able to get on video meetings with you, but it's more on my side on what I need to be doing is actually having a backup connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about that's actually a great point, and it's kind of sparked this question too. Do you find that the VPN has helped since we started using that VPN? Has it been like something that's come in handy for you, or is it kind of just like an extra step in the process that's more of a burden than than it is helpful?
Actually, it's really helpful because I'm accessing websites that aren't really available here in the Philippines. So having the VPN, it doesn't slow down my computer at all.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's actually great.
Yeah, Bitdefender is for anybody watching this. Bitdefender is the VPN that we use, and it's worked great so far. Not like an affiliate marketer for them or anything. It works good for us. Okay, awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of answer these questions and help me out with this, Rihanna. Is there anything else that you would like to say to anybody that's like maybe considering working with a VA, but they're like kind of on the fence? Like sell it a little bit. What do you think?
having a VA might sound kind of uncomfortable or scary for some because you don't really get to see each other face to face. But it's a good challenge to take on if you ever want to hire a VA. We can also do tasks that we can do like face to face. So yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, wait, you might have to switch your audio now back to your
Can you hear me?
microphone. Yep.
Okay. I wanted to show this for a couple of reasons. I wanted to show what my VA looks, sounds, and acts like, because this is what this is how she sounds when she's reaching out to all of our sellers here in North Carolina. It's just a bunch of good old boys down here, and I have not had a single problem. I mean, maybe one or two issues with sellers that were just being jerks saying they couldn't understand her. But even with the little accent that she has braces even. I was worried about that because the way she might be talking would affect my business, but we've been able to generate so many leads, and she's been in so many conversations. I listened to her calls. She's never had a problem speaking to or speaking with anybody.
Yeah, she sounded pretty confident. That was pretty good. And I appreciate you putting that together earlier today. You're like, I'm just going to interview you right now so I can play it later for all these other investors.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly, I know we're over time. Our biggest expense is our employee, followed by skip tracing. And then these are just some of the other softwares that we talked about throughout the call. I budget for about $800 of additional expenses for taking people out to lunches, travel, and anything else. And monthly, our total operating expenses come out to around $5,000 right now. That'll probably be kicking up to around $7,000 when we take on our other employee. Like I said, that's about $10.60 an hour plus bonuses for the virtual assistant. And then Never Split the Difference, the E-Myth, 10X, and the Compound Effect are all books you should read if you want to.
Or if you want to be good at this business
Yes,
or any business.
absolutely. All right, that is my presentation.
So actually, Jake, that's perfect timing. It's 7:35. We got 25 minutes, so people can ask you questions and network and still get off the call by 8 o'clock. So you did great.
Awesome.
Can you please go back to the books that you recommend?
Yes, ma'am.
Janeth, how long have you been in this country? Can I tease you for just a second, Janeth? But know that I love you so much.
Oh, let me take a picture first. All right, got it.
I was just gonna tease you about your accent compared to his virtual assistant's accent.
Oh no, I just learned English, so she knows more English than me. Yeah, so
I know that was one of my biggest concerns. I asked Jake early on, like how easy is, how well does she speak English and how thick is her accent? Because I was worried that with cold calling that would be an issue. So that was the first time I got to see or hear his virtual assistant, and she sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah, she sounds very confident. It doesn't matter about the accent, it's how confident you sound like.
This is true.
I don't know, because you can talk to an Indian doctor and they have that accent, but when you're talking and you make you feel that he knows his stuff, the accent really doesn't matter. But you will find out some people that I saw a TikTok that this lady was an Asian lady and she sounds pretty good, very good English actually, with what is that English accent, England people, okay? And,
British.
she's saying, British. There we go. And she says, "Can I speak with somebody that? Oh, do you speak English?" And she said, "Oh no, ma'am, I don't. Can you transfer it to someone?" Of course, absolutely, with a very good. So you always gonna find some type of people like that. So
Yeah. So Brooke, you look like you had a question. What do you want to ask?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, this is awesome. You did a great job. I remember when we had dinner with you, I think your goal was like, I want 100 employees by, I forget what your goal was, but I was like,
Yeah.
really? So you're getting there very soon, but what was the
Like-
VPN that you were recommended? Something Defender?
Bit Defender, BIT. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a great like virus protection software as well as VPN. I've used them for quite a while, and it doesn't bog down your computer like a lot of the other ones do, like Norton or some of the other bigger ones, and it has just as good of protection as well as their VPN.
So your first step, you think, would be getting all those documents in place before you hire a VA?
I did for us, and it worked very well. We trained her, or I trained Rihanna for 2 weeks every day on Zoom, just like if you were onboarding a new employee in person. I was on Zoom the whole time with her, and having those documents made it so much easier. That's how we got our first deal under contract in like a week using her during her training period, because she already knew what she needed to do because we had that provided for her.
Are you willing to share any of your documents or SOPs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have. I might be able to put some in the chat here.
Yeah, so Jake, what my biggest takeaway is, and Liz and I worked with someone virtually for a while. She was, a college student, but she was virtual, and we were training her on some things, and we had developed kind of an SOP and just how to do certain tasks, and we outlined certain things. But then as she was working it, we realized that it wasn't working the way we had outlined it, but we
Mhm.
never updated it. And so the fact that you have the VA go in and update it as you have to tweak things, that's kind of like, oh wow, why didn't I think to just update it or have her update it, right? Because it's at that point, it's her like, this is what we're telling you to do. If it doesn't work, tell me it doesn't work and tell me what works, kind of thing. So I really like the idea of having them update those SOPs for you.
Absolutely. The whole purpose of having or bringing an employee on is to make things easier for you as the business owner and to automate that. And that was, I think, from the E-Myth, that was my big takeaway, is to like let go and automate more systems, and definitely having them update it because they're the ones working on it. I mean, it just made the most sense to me. And I do want to kind of touch on this too, is like I can provide some of my SOPs, but you need to really figure out your own business and get to know your own business very well and come up with your own SOPs, because you're not going to operate the way that I operate. Even if it's successful for me, it may not work for you, because the way that I work with my VA is very unique to just me and how I am a stay-at-home dad. And it can be very, I guess, not like personal, but everybody on this call operates their business different.
No, that's good advice.
This has been huge, and I'm just wondering, when I was in Orlando, how I didn't get to meet him.
Because Marie was hogging me.
Well, thanks for taking your
No.
time, Billy, and I appreciate you going deeper and into so much detail, because I think it allows you to even take little pieces that you could maybe, like, my business is so different than yours, but pieces that you can take and apply, or some ideas. It's been great.
Awesome. I'm so happy that it was good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rochelle, I don't know if you remember, but Linda Peterson asked in that training, who's in a market where you can buy properties for less than 200,000, and Jake was the only person that raised his hand.
Yeah.
And I jumped out of my chair and said, "Where's that guy sitting?" And
I
I was
wanna
like,
meet you.
I'm gonna find you later. We're gonna talk.
Yeah, and then
And once Marie puts her eyeball on you, That's it. You're done deal.
Yeah, then they swindled me at the pool table. You want to tell them that story?
We already
don't
know how that story
I don't even
goes.
think my husband made you buy him a drink.
No, no.
I think you
It
got
was,
off
it was
easy.
it was a minor swindling at best.
Yeah, I would never, ever go to a pool table with either of them.
It was just negotiating. They were just practicing their tactics on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Jacob, this is
Ryan,
Valerie
did you wanna
again.
say oh, yeah, Valerie, go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
hi, everybody. I'm from way over here in the Midwest. I gather that most of you are out in some sunny, warm weather areas, but you know how it is. Maybe not Jacob. This was a very informative discussion, so I wanted to thank you very much. And Marie, thank you for bringing Jacob on. These are the things that I'm laser focused on now in my own business development. So I did want to go back to a few details, if that is okay with the group, maybe just get a little granular on the implement
Sure.
stage. You had that beautiful slide up with all the bullet points, and you talked about text blasting with launch control and then cold calling through call tools. And then following up, I was curious if you just do one series of text blasts, or do you like text and then retext the ones you didn't hit several times, and then cold call after you've text blasted several times? You know, how does that all break out? And then also, when it got to follow up, you mentioned that you're an Excel nerd, and are you using Excel to keep everything organized like a CRM, or do you have a CRM? Because I know RealFlow, in my mind, it's not really a CRM in the way that it could track things from, you know, different phases in the process. So how are you're doing that through Excel? I guess that's my question about Excel. And yeah, I love that tip from Chris Voss's book about how am I supposed to do that for the close.
Yes.
Honestly, I got the book and I'm getting it back out to reread it all. So anyway,
Awesome.
my questions are more on the front end though, about the process.
Yeah, no, that's honestly like the stuff I really like getting into. I wanted to kind of keep this at like a, you know, a quick flyover, because I already went over the hour. I could have really dug in, but great questions.
You're good. You have 15 more minutes. At 8 o'clock, everyone wants to go to bed. So you
I'm
have
going to. It's almost 10 o'clock here, so
I know. But yeah, so answer Valerie. So as far as I think that's really interesting to know, what is your workflow, for lack of a better term, of like how you put all of these in the different systems? So texting first, then cold calling. Is it multiple touches on text, multiple calls?
So I'll say this. We start out with text messaging. And this is one of the other reasons why I love launch control. Can I just share my screen again? It'll be so much easier to show everybody.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, so CRM, RealFlow, I use it. I use the Scrum board. We review it weekly in our meetings, but we're actually about to start implementing Monday.com to streamline our workflow, because I need a project management software that can visualize everything in a timeline and keep my transaction coordination in line with my acquisitions and then my dispositions. So we don't use RealFlow a whole lot. To answer the CRM question. To answer the current workflow, we do a lot of stuff out of Google Drive. I mean, it's pretty much right now the hub of our business and more closely related to what our CRM is. I wanted to pull this up.
Are you saying, Jacob, that Monday.com is a CRM that you're looking at currently? And I'm familiar with those board on RealFlow, and I thought that was a really great tool, but at some point in time, I think you're getting to the point where it's not going to work. You just need more.
It's a little infantile. It doesn't let you go into as much detail as you need to. It's great for like, you have a couple things going on, but when I think at the like max we had like 23 or 24 properties that we were either evaluating, making offers on, or currently, under contract with, and it gets flooded, and it's just not robust enough.
Yeah.
So this is and it's not like presentation ready. It's not super polished because it gets tweaked and messed with every week, but this is our living SOP. So all of our passwords, our digital access in there, example of a workflow for a part-time individual. We have this updated for a part-time individual because we're about to take on another VA at a part-time capacity and then expand to a full-time capacity.
Jake, can you just zoom in on that? Put yourself at like 150 on that or
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing this, because I put so much pressure to like do these SOPs, and I don't even really know what they look like because that's not my background, nor is it, I have no experience with it.
What? No military training? What, Rochelle?
No military training. But it's just like you put it on a Word document. I'm like, oh, I could do that. So it just helps. Like my husband keeps saying, simplify it, keep it simple. And I let something almost like get in my way because I want to overcomplicate it. Imagine that coming from me. But like I want to make it harder than it really needs to be. I just need it to function. And this is a perfect example of it. So
good.
awesome.
I'm glad. I'm kind of the same way. I put a lot of pressure on myself for a lot of tasks.
Mhm.
But as soon as I started, because I'm kind of a perfectionist with like woodworking or any of the hobbies that I have, and I knew that I couldn't approach this business like that, or else I would be stuck on the ground floor, never going anywhere.
Get in the weeds. Mhm.
So this is just a quick look at my SOP for call tools, and I'm going to zoom through this because we only have like 10 more minutes, and I want to get back to Valerie's kind of granular questions.
You can share that, Jacob?
The SOP,
Yeah.
the whole thing. I would rather not share the whole thing, just because I am working on putting all this together in some type of an educational platform or something that I can offer to folks. And I'm not happy with it. It's not something that I think that I want other people to judge me on just yet. So it's a work in progress. But I'm happy to kind of just go through it here. This is our Google Calendar. You have to set up a calendar of some sort. If you're going to have your VA do everything up until actually signing contracts, they need to be able to schedule appointments for you. My VA does all of my appointment setting through my Google Calendar. She doesn't have to ask me, hey, when are you free? Are you free on Tuesday? And there's no back and forth. She knows all of the Mayo formulas, the ARVs, the 1% rule, how to throw all this together very quickly. Give her some of my contacts. She does all my social media management. She does all of my on-market searches. She does all my Craigslist marketing, scrubbing through Realtor.com and Zillow.
You said you break down her day into like 15-minute increments. What does that look like, out of curiosity?
Zoom out here. And you please take a picture of this if you're gonna have an employee working with you, by all means. And you can see up here, I break down that like it's 15 minutes, but it's just to structure your tasks. It's a guideline, not a specific deadline. And all the documents that I give my employees, I always do an overview, a purpose, and an expectation. Sorry. Okay, so the workflow of the day, we start out with the text messages, and then she filters through emails and responses and calls from the previous day. She sets all of her dispositions, like warm leads and qualifying those leads in order of priority, and then moves on to follow-up calls. So moving on to follow-up calls is kind of like the go-to for when there's really nothing in the works. She does her on-market searches and everything, scrubbing through listed properties, runs a desktop analysis. We use the comp evaluator from Fortune Builders. That's a great tool. I know so many people that don't use it when it's really super powerful if you're having somebody else do your evaluations for you. Right now, I only talk to sellers when I'm negotiating the terms of the contract. Everything else has been agreed upon and done for me, and I just negotiate the terms of the contract with the sellers, and then I go handle all of the transaction coordination and dispositions. So I have to have very solid systems for them to use. Otherwise, I would just be freaking out and like looking over everything and trying to micromanage it. So this is how I protect my employees from my own craziness. So yeah, this is my schedule here. What I want to show you, launch control.
Yeah, what is launch control?
Launch control is the text messaging platform, but it's so much more than that. It also has a great KPI and analytics dashboard that Marie gave me some gruff about because I nerded out about it to her.
So call tools has that in there as part of it too. So you're not using that function in call tools.
I actually don't myself. I'm rarely ever in call tools. I just my VA goes in there. Rihanna manages call tools and gets together all the reports and everything and keeps our numbers fresh. She uploads all of our leads in there. I really am all about just automating everything so I can spend my days with my son. And then I do like 2 hours of work a day, seriously, and it's amazing. I love it so much. Especially being active duty, like God, anybody that's ever been in the military, George, I know you know what I'm talking about, man. All the time, they're all over you. You're always working. Yes. Okay, so to try to wrap up here, we send our messages. We do the initial. We do the initial outreach, and then they get categorized here as a hot, a warm, a nurture, a drip, or no status, or a do not contact. Launch Control is a fantastic platform that automates all the follow-ups on a schedule. So we don't have to go back and worry about how many people we've texted and how many people we need to follow up with. You can see it happens automatically at day 15, day 10, or excuse me, day 10, day 15, day 30, and day 60. And it happens automatically at the calculated best response times based on national averages of all of their compiled data. It's amazing. And you can see here, this is the template I was talking about. Hi, first name. It pulls that automatically from the skip trace list. Hope all is good or well. It has to be able to switch around to avoid the spam filters. This is Rihanna from EPS. Any changes of plans regarding to sell your property. Some of the wording's a little weird because some of these words are like blacklisted and you'll get blocked by the spam filter. So sometimes your text message has to read a little funny, but as long as the main point gets across, your deliverability still stays the same. So once they get the disposition set and they get categorized, the follow-ups happen automatically. We push everything to cold calling, and if we get a hold of a seller that we already spoke to, oh yeah, thanks Mrs. Seller, I'm just following up and making sure everything's going well and you don't have any questions about the process. It would take too long, and I don't know that it would be as efficient to try and then go back through and process the list again to pull out the few sellers that we had a good conversation with, rather than just putting the whole list in call tools and having it do its thing. So We might have 1 or 2 people that we speak to a couple times, but the second touch point is always the cold call, and that gets funneled back around automatically by call tools. So really the whole system is just automated to maximize talking to everybody and keeping that workflow fresh or recycled. So there really aren't like a lot of, like there's no dust bunnies under the couch, so to speak, you know what I mean? So does that kind of answer that detailed question about it? I hope.
Yes, it's starting to give me different perspectives and ideas of how these platforms that you've chosen do exactly what I wanted to do initially just to get started. You know, to text out of the gate, then follow up with calls, you know, that kind of thing. But what you've done is you've put a lot of thought into automating things. Well, I'm sure you worked your way into this, but from the get-go, you started pretty much with these tools. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I started using launch control. I was using launch control before I even met Marie. You know, it was one of the first things that I implemented. I wasn't doing a very good job with it until my VA took over, and it was a lot easier for me to kind of, I don't know, look from above and see what was wrong with the system. Also, I just want to say I haven't been paying attention to the chat, so I'm sorry if I missed any of your comments along the way.
Well, I see that it's 8:59 here in Chicago, so I think I really appreciate the time you took to address some of my concerns. I'm very thankful. This is a great call for me, but I don't want to be the person that takes up anyone else's Q&A time.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we're all on Facebook. We're all part of the same group. If you wanted to DM Jake, I'm sure he would answer, you know, any other questions too. So I really appreciate your time, Jacob. I know that I get to talk to you all the time, and I'm always, you know, in awe of what you do on your end. And it's been really fun working with you over the past few months. So look forward to seeing how much you grow, and how much we grow. My father-in-law, by the way, was over the other day. He's like, "What's up with this North Carolina property?" My son was walking through on Facebook the other day. "Are you guys thinking about buying property in North Carolina?" I looked at my father-in-law. I'm like, "We already bought 2 and we're about to close on our 3rd."
Yeah.
Thanks for your interest. So it's been fun. Like, Jake is my little secret weapon, guys. He's my guy behind the curtain. So yeah, any last questions real quick, and then we'll get off here because I know it's getting late for us.
I wanted to ask Jake, thank you so much for such a great, this is Sigal Peterson. I'm from Hawaii. I just wanted to ask, did you try HubSpot as your CRM?
I have
as you're dealing with,
sorry, go ahead, finish.
As you're dealing with so many properties at one time, I was just wondering.
I have not. I'm in a very, you know, we've really been operating at kind of, you know, full capacity here for about 6 months, and I'm really in kind of a transformative stage in my business, and I'm definitely evaluating other CRMs, but I have not tried HubSpot.
Marie,
Cool.
are you using HubSpot?
I am no longer using HubSpot, Sigal. I'm just using LeadVault. And LeadVault is nice because we can send our text blasts and schedule them the same as Jacob showed in Launch Control. The KPIs aren't as clear in that. Sorry, my boys are now jumping up and down behind me because it's their bedtime. But the other thing, it does also have a dialer, which is nice. So if I hired a VA, I could have them do the text and then have them do the cold calls. But it only has a single dialer, where I know Launch Call Tools has, you know, can call 10 lines at the same time. So it depends. Sometimes you do need a mix of different platforms, right, to get the best results. So I know I haven't tried Call Tools, but if I hire a VA, that might be more useful than having them just use LeadVault since it's a single dialer. So
That's great that that's all included though.
It is all included in one, which is why I was actually asking, like, do you have to download the list in multiple places? Having the
Yeah.
convenience of only downloading it once and having it scrub. And we actually were on a call with JP and talking about if we could somehow incorporate the duplicates. If it's all already in that one CRM, if you can look at the names before you skip trace them to see if they're already in your system, kind of thing, run them through. So
That's what that Excel file that I had created was. It does exactly that because I reached out to actually talk to him about it as well on
Yeah.
a call. And it's just unfortunately not something that they offer right now. But I think
right.
that's probably why it's 8 cents. If it gets much more involved, they're probably gonna have to up their prices.
Yeah, well, and at 8 cents, it's all right, I guess, if you pay for a couple of duplicates.
Yeah.
They do scrub for duplicates on the one list that you send them, but obviously they can't scrub against duplicates on different previous lists that you sent them or anything like that. But
Right, correct.
so anyway, with that, guys, I am gonna go put these little guys to bed. Jake, again, I appreciate it. I hope this was very informative for everyone. I know that I have been wanting to hire a virtual assistant for a long time, and I've worked with different people in different capacities, but Jake has definitely inspired me to kind of give myself a kick in the butt and really get on this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, and I will have the recording up later this week, so if anybody wants to rewatch, you'll be able to and take more screenshots of his awesome PowerPoint presentation.
I just have one comment, Marie. In our area where Hispanic is a language, with the virtual assistant that I had, that was a concern.
Yeah.
They didn't understand the language and couldn't communicate with the sellers that didn't speak any other language than Spanish.
Yeah, then you might have to be looking at a virtual assistant that speaks Spanish.
Yeah, or you can do that when you interview them. There's that's the benefit of using a service like Riva Global. You can interview your VAs as opposed to like Fiverr or Uplink or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was awesome.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right,
Good
good
night.
night all.